continuing our reading from The Breathless, Dark Ripples, Part 1. Chapter 12, Break Point. Doing the right thing always seems to feel bloody terrible anymore. Within about a fortnight after Greg's strange introduction to Mycroft Holmes, the besiegement had come to an abrupt end. It had taken only one well-timed text message to the special number he had been given, and within minutes a pair of well-dressed agents had arrived, cornering Sherlock away from the building where 3 women had been found hanged. Greg had watched discreetly from a narrow window in the stairwell as they had spoken to him. Sherlock had clearly been less than pleased to be confronted, and unwilling to approach the black car that pulled up to receive him. When its door had opened, he'd balked outright and begun to spit vicious invective, some words of which Greg could hear even from his hidden vantage point. Apparently, his older brother had made the time for a personal visit after all. It's now been 3 weeks since that afternoon, and Greg has had no word from either Holmes' brother in that time. Not that he'd actually expected to be kept in the loop, of course. The upshot of the meeting before Christmas had been a distinctly grudging agreement on both sides. Mycroft would renege on whatever non-contact deal he'd previously made with Sherlock, and begin to directly exert his authority in the interest of his brother's well-being, while Greg would provide his cooperation by reporting Sherlock's status whenever he was sighted. As a side benefit, Greg's crime scenes would once again be uncomplicated by civilian interference, but at no point had Mycroft promised communication in return. And as far as Sherlock is concerned, Greg isn't sure he'll ever want to get in contact again, even if he has the opportunity to do so. After all, it must be obvious to him that Greg had made plans with Mycroft to remove him. Considering the obviously rocky relationship between the two, it seems likely that Greg will henceforth be seen as an enemy, not to be trusted. It should be satisfying. After all, what better way could there have been to accomplish what was necessary? He'd wanted Sherlock to get clean for the sake of his safety. He'd wanted to keep Sherlock out of his way, away from his work, for the sake of his secret. An arrangement with Mycroft was the most expedient way to solve both problems. The gnawing guilt he feels is just a side effect of success, really. Greg is sure he can learn to ignore it. For Valentine's Day, Greg procures a reservation at a high-class Italian restaurant that Nadia's been hoping to try. As they're escorted to a table near the center of the crowded space, he imagines the eyes of other couples following them. His gorgeous wife outshines him in her incredible strapless dress, and he knows he probably looks more than a decade older than her with his profusion of silver hair, but he's wearing his best suit to compensate. "Libby started dragging me along with her to a new spin class," Nadia comments as Greg's studying the wine list. "Uh-huh. Is this another one of those ridiculous theme ones, then? You said that hot Bollywood class was terrible last summer." "It's not bad, actually. I really liked last week's class. Though I don't think Lib is all that serious about it. Far as I can tell, she signed us up so she'd have an excuse to spend time with the instructor." Greg grunts. Pinot Noir, Zinfandel. Dio usually likes mellow better. "So I presume you've already sussed out whether the bloke has any potential, right? Be a bloody miracle if Libby got herself a man." "Oh, hush, love," she scolds him, but she's giggling. "Actually, Bryce is quite fit, and he's got a day job teaching PE at Avondale Park School, so he's good with kids. Libby could use someone who can help her. On the weekends she has Jason." "Well, I wish her the best," he says, smiling, and then the waiter reaches their table, and all thoughts of Nadia's luckless friend leave his head. The meal promises to be fantastic. It had better be for the price of the evening special menu. They share an appetizer of fresh mozzarella and tomatoes, with a balsamic drizzle that makes Nadia groan in pleasure, and then they're each served a delicate tureen of rich lobster bisque. It's as good as it smells, and Nadia is over the moon for it. She threads one of her ankles between his under the table and gives him a smoldering look that promises he'll be reaping rewards for his choice of romantic outing later. That's when it all goes a bit shit. Greg's mid-sentence between bites of soup, giving Nadia a humorous account of an odd witness statement he'd taken the week before, when the air leaves his lungs all at once and he chokes. He hadn't been able to specify a table near an exit. It would have been an impossible request on a fully booked evening like this one, and there have been no ripples for weeks anyway. Greg had dismissed his usual worry, knowing that Mycroft had surely chosen a center for Sherlock's rehabilitation that was at least as highly acclaimed as the last one, if not better. Just my fucking luck, he thinks, as he swivels his head frantically for a way out he already knows he doesn't have. His spoon clatters from his hand, forgotten. The image that overtakes Nadia's shocked face is dark, lit only by street lamps. Even before the scene coalesces enough for Greg to see the curb or the fenced lawn of the facility behind it, he can hear Sherlock's angry words tumbling out at high speed. "You truly think, after all this, that I'd willingly relocate to any place you've chosen? That I would agree to remain under your thumb?" He looks scruffy and tired in the sallow sodium light. He doesn't grow a beard well, and he's carrying a lumpy, dark plastic bag which slaps against his leg as he stalks down the pavement. Greg presumes it to be personal effects with which he'd entered the facility. "It's better than that slum where you were hiding out. Honestly, you insist on living in filth, as if that's the only way you could possibly distance yourself from us." Following after his brother, Mycroft looks nearly as stern and unruffled as he had when Greg met him, but his voice is full of overt emotion, disdain, frustration. "Maybe I like it," Sherlock spits. "Did you ever think of that?" "You think you owe something to those people, those two irredeemable addicts you made housemates? You think they care about you? You're wrong, Sherlock." At this, Sherlock spins and closes the remaining distance between them in 2 fast strides, shoving the flat of his palm into the center of his brother's chest to push him away. "You know nothing about them!" Greg understands now where he needs to be. Sherlock's impassioned shout sends him 2 paces backwards into the street, and without hesitation, Greg is already flinging his bodiless awareness out to the driver of the lorry that's come round the corner at speed. It's a simple push, one he's performed all too frequently. The brakes scream and catch. The driver's hands clench on the wheel. He sees Mycroft's face through the windscreen, frozen for a second in a shocked rictus, and then there's air and light again. And Nadia's voice, brittle with upset. "Fuck," he says hoarsely, reaching out for her hand as he assesses the situation. Sorry. He spilt the bisque all over his trousers and knocked over his half-full wineglass. The maitre d' is standing nearby with 2 other waiters, looking terribly concerned. Every eye in the restaurant is on them. This time, Greg knows it's not his imagination. April's first days are as rainy and cold as March had been, but on the 5th there is sun and a bracing breeze. Greg's thankful for the clean chill of air down his throat as he steps away from his team's newest crime scene. Sally and Oliver are still inside with the body, working with 2 forensics technicians to document the details. It's a nasty one. It looks like the poor man had been methodically disemboweled, and judging by the state of his tied wrists on the chair, he may have been alive for much of the process. It leaves a bad taste in Greg's mouth. The notebook he'd left in the car was a fairly obvious excuse to get out of the building for a couple minutes, but his sergeants didn't seem to begrudge him the break. Just as Greg steps under the police tape, letting it snap down behind him, he sees movement from across the street. "Well, here we go again, then," he thinks, stopping where he is and bracing himself to speak with the young man who's rushing towards him. "This is an interesting case," Sherlock says, his excited, restless eyes flicking back and forth between the barricaded house and Greg himself, as if gathering equal amounts of data from each. "Messy. You're regretting the curry you ate for lunch, and the extra equipment that forensic tech was carrying in. Ah, perhaps a gutting? Something with lots of pieces, at any rate. More to collect and tag. He was a tax accountant, wasn't he?" "I don't think you need to be privy to the details," Greg replies coolly, focusing on Sherlock's pupils. They're blown wide, the irises surrounding them thin, pale rings within bloodshot pink. "This again already. He couldn't wait more than 7 fucking weeks." Greg reaches for the phone in his pocket, intending to send out an immediate message to Mycroft's people, but he's distracted from it by Sherlock's headlong dive to duck under the cordon tape. "Oi! Police business!" he snaps, throwing out an arm to block the attempt. "Just who do you think you are, anyway, barging in here?" "I'm a consulting detective," says Sherlock, straightening with a smug look over. "The only one you'll ever meet. In fact, I invented the position." "You what?" asks Greg with a purposeful tone of near derision, but the incredulous grin is impossible to hold back. Bloody hell, he really is. "If you don't believe me," sniffs Sherlock, "let me see the scene. I guarantee that I can tell you 16 things that you failed to observe about the victim within the first 5 minutes. 16, eh? Well now, as tempting as that offer is, I'm gonna have to pass. See, I've got these pesky things called rules to follow. You also have a deeply ingrained desire to help people, to save people specifically, stemming from some incident in your childhood, no doubt." Shaken, Greg immediately moves to put some space between them. He draws a long, calming breath before asking, "And you think letting you hunker down over this mutilated corpse is gonna help me save him? He's already a bit too far gone, I'd wager." Sherlock scoffs aloud and takes a step closer to the building, leaning over the tape and prompting Greg to pull him in again. "You're missing the obvious, Inspector. Exactly as usual. This isn't a murder. Well, I'm fairly certain suicide's right out. It's a kidnapping." Greg purses his lips. "The victim lived alone, Sherlock. Nobody here to kidnap." "Come on, Lestrade, use your thick head. If I can tell from the outside of the house, surely you can put together enough to see this. Just let me look. I'll give you all you need to know." Greg knows just where to go. He noted the alleyway through automatic habit as he'd arrived outside the scene, judged how many steps it would take to get safely out of sight. Now he grabs Sherlock roughly by the sleeve of his coat and drags him there, 1, 2, 3, in quick march before pushing him against the wall and jabbing a finger hard into his bony chest. "No, you are not getting in there. You're fucking high, Sherlock. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I'm bloody stupid?" After Sherlock finishes gaping in shock at the manhandling, at the sudden explosion of temper, whatever, he blinks twice, rapidly. "You're an idiot. You're all idiots. But no," he admits grudgingly. "You, Lestrade, you're not stupid." Greg doesn't pause to appreciate the strange compliment. "I'm telling you this, Sherlock, and I want you to fucking listen to me. I will not allow your involvement with any case, nor your presence on any scene, unless you are sober. Are we understood?" There's a silence then, filled only by the ragged sounds of their breathing. Sherlock's voice is small and subdued when it returns. "But you will, if I am clean? If you get clean, and stay clean." He nearly says yes. He wants to say yes, wants it more than anything, and though he tries to school his features, he's sure his eyes are giving him away. "Yes, I want to see you happy. I want to see you safe. I want to see you brilliant and whole." But then, at the corner of his vision, he registers movement. A car driving past on the street outside the alley. A black car. He thinks of Mycroft, of the way the man's sharp eyes and skilled tongue had very nearly been able to flay the layers of safety from him in only one meeting. The danger inherent in every moment spent in the presence of either Holmes, when one false step could expose what he's worked for so long to keep hidden. No, it's too great a risk. He knows he can't keep up the lie forever. "I don't know, Sherlock," he mutters, shaking his head no, though he can't bring himself to say the word. "I don't know. Get out of here. Go, now." He jams his hands into his pockets and tells himself he's done the right thing, standing at the mouth of the alley and watching Sherlock go until his bowed head passes out of sight at the next turn. Doing the right thing always seems to feel bloody terrible anymore.